Good afternoon, everyone. This is Daniel Marins. I'm in for David Shuster this hour on Take Action News this Saturday, February 9th, coming to you live from We Act Radio studios in the Anacostia neighborhood of Washington, D.C. We've got a lot coming up this hour. We're going to be talking with our own Charlie Mitchell, our congressional expert. He's going to tell us the latest on immigration reform and where the two parties stand on that, the possibility of gun control getting through the Republican House of Representatives, and then after that, we're going to talk a little bit about climate change. Are Senate Republicans calling a truce on climate change? We've got all that coming up in just a few minutes. But first, there was an interesting story this week that have a lot of people scratching their heads. The recent infamous past president George W. Bush, it was discovered, is a painter. That's right, actual paint. A hacker by the name of Guccifer hacked into George W. Bush's sister's computer's email and found these paintings that George Bush apparently made. And they are self-portraits. They're self-portraits of George W. Bush, the back of his torso in the shower. You can see a little bit of the glint of his eyes in the look of of the mirror in the shower. And another one of him in the bathtub, just his legs. And I have to say, a lot of commentators are saying they're pretty darn good. David Shuster, what did you think? Did you get a chance to see those paintings yet?
From what I've seen, yeah, they're not bad. He can do a far better job than I can. There's a great temptation, and I can only imagine the comedians and the jokes that they're going to have about finger painting and everything else. But the fact of the matter is, good for him. I mean, in his retirement, he's come up with something artistic. Who knew that he had this kind of creative, thoughtful, introspective side, which is what painting represents. And, I think it's great. I wish he would have taken up painting while he was in office.
That's right. I actually think, if you can take a look at it, and we'll tweet out the link a little bit later, but the coloring I thought was really beautiful. A lot of, sort of the way he depicted the water on his legs, there was sort of a layering there, that you could sort of, that looked really realistic. And I think you're also kind of wondering what he's thinking when he's in the shower there. A little bit risque, too, his shower and bath shots. But I think the Secret Service is actually investigating how this hacker, Guccifer, managed to get into the Bush family email. David, a lot of people are saying, he should have quit his day job. This may have been his calling.
Well, it's an interesting thing in that I think presidents tend to be a lot more sort of complex figures than most Americans give them credit for. I mean, in part because of the political divide. You either like President Obama or you hate President Obama. You either like George W. Bush or you hate them. There's not really sort of much stuff in the middle. And so what happens is you tend to get a very sort of one-dimensional view of them, good or bad. And I think it's great that in this sort of post-presidency, this is something that pretty sophisticated that he's taking up. And my sense is he probably did some of this, dabbled with some of it while he was president. And, you can only imagine what it's like to go from being leader of the free world, the most powerful man on the planet, to then living in relative sort of obscurity. And the Bush family has decided, okay, George W. Bush is not going to spend much time in the limelight. He's going to allow President Obama to do his thing, and it's got to be really tough to go from all the trappings of the presidency to suddenly sort of a life on a quiet street in Texas. You can only imagine what a psychotherapist or psychiatrist would, the field day that they would have in talking to whether it's George W. Bush or Bill Clinton or Jimmy Carter about their adjustment post-White House. And I think most of them would suggest, yeah, you should take up things like painting.
Well, David, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that in terms of psychoanalysis, there's a very, very clear trail here in that we know that certain people with very violent histories, very violent pasts that have blood on their hands, that have killed people unnecessarily and don't have remorse for it, often need outlets like this. They often enjoy the company of animals or babies or also art forms. I think of television series like The Sopranos, and I wonder if some people would connect George Bush is the unnecessary wars that he led us on and all of the death that caused, and kind of his hyper-nationalism and the need now to kind of step back from some of the human carnage that he may have presided over.
It's a good point, and I think every president has regrets. All of us, of course, have different regrets about how we handled our jobs or the tasks that were put in front of us. And you can imagine the stakes that when you make the decisions in the Oval Office and they don't go well, the consequences that they have on millions of people. And I'm sure that there's a certain amount of that weighs on him. just as it has weighed on previous presidents. So it's just again, but it's so intriguing. You sort of wonder if Bill Clinton played a lot of the saxophone after he was done in office, just to express himself. Who knows?
There's also a pattern here of Republican presidents sort of retiring to home and taking vacation, and Democratic presidents, I'm thinking of Jimmy Carter, working on Habitat for Humanity, Bill Clinton with the Clinton Global Initiative, kind of just taking to the road. And so it's kind of a fascinating dichotomy on that.